Imagine waking up to a knock at your door, and when you open it, you're face to face with someone who claims to have traveled through time just to warn you about a terrible fate. Could this be your last chance to change the future, or are you doomed no matter what? Tonight I'm going to tell you two chilling tales of time travelers who brought warnings of dark destinies. Warnings that might just be too late to stop. Story 1. The Stranger at the Crossroads. It was a rainy, thunderous night, the kind that makes every shadow seem like a figure lurking just out of sight. Sarah was driving down an empty road, tired after a long shift at the hospital. The windshield wipers struggled to keep up with the downpour when suddenly, at the intersection, a man appeared out of nowhere. She slammed the brakes, narrowly missing him. Furious, she jumped out of her car, but before she could yell at the man, he spoke in a voice that chilled her to the bone. "I've been looking for you for so long, Sarah." Sarah froze. The man was soaking wet, but didn't seem affected by the rain. His clothes were strange, old-fashioned, and his eyes, there was something about his eyes. They held a knowledge that was impossible to place. "You have to listen to me," the man continued, stepping closer. "Tomorrow you're going to be in an accident. You'll leave your house at exactly 7:32 a.m., take the freeway, and at mile marker 64 your car will spin out of control. You'll crash into a truck, and..." He paused, his voice shaking. "You won't survive." Sarah's heart raced and she stumbled back. Was this a prank? A hallucination? How could this stranger know such a specific detail about her future? Before she could react, the man pulled out a pocket watch, its ticking unnaturally loud. "I've tried to change this timeline so many times. No matter what, it always happens," he whispered. "Please, don't leave your house tomorrow." Sarah stared at him, unsure of what to do. Then, just as suddenly as he had appeared, the man turned and vanished into the rain, leaving behind only the echo of his haunting warning. The next morning, despite the terror that lingered from the encounter, Sarah told herself it had to be a dream. But the clock struck 7:32, and as if on autopilot, she found herself getting into her car. Driving along the freeway, she noticed the mile markers ticking by. 59, 60, 61. And then it hit her. The warning. Mile marker 64. Her heart pounding, she slammed the brakes and swerved into the shoulder, just as a massive truck blew past her, spinning out of control. If she hadn't pulled over, it would have hit her head on. Shaking, Sarah pulled her car over and wept. The man had been right. But before she could catch her breath, there was a knock on her window. She looked up to see the same man, his eyes filled with sorrow. "You survived today, but the timeline, it's always shifting," he said quietly. "I'll see you again." Then he vanished, leaving her to wonder, how many more warnings would there be? Story 2. The Prophecy in the Mirror. It was midnight, and Jake sat in front of his bathroom mirror, staring at his reflection. He'd been feeling off for weeks. Bad dreams, strange flashes of déjà vu, and the creeping sense that something terrible was on the horizon. Tonight, though, things took a turn for the worse. As Jake splashed cold water on his face, he noticed something strange. His reflection wasn't quite right. For a split second, the face staring back at him wasn't his own. It was older, with a scar running down the cheek, and the eyes. They were hollow, as if they'd seen unimaginable horrors. Startled, Jake blinked, and his reflection returned to normal. He laughed it off as his mind playing tricks on him, until the face appeared again. This time it spoke. "Jake, listen to me. I'm you, but from the future. I don't have much time. You need to hear what I'm about to say." Jake recoiled, stepping back from the mirror, but the reflection, his older self, reached out, his hand pressing against the glass. "It's about her. Emma. She's going to die tomorrow, and it's because of you." Jake's heart dropped. Emma was his fiancée, the love of his life. The reflection continued, voice breaking. "You can stop it, Jake, but you have to be brave. Tomorrow at 4:15 p.m. she's going to leave the house. If you let her go, she'll be hit by a car at the intersection of 5th and Maple. You can save her, but..." The reflection hesitated, eyes darkening. "If you stop her, something far worse will happen." Jake shook his head, not wanting to believe what he was hearing. "How can you know this? How can I trust you?" The reflection's face twisted in agony. "Because I've lived it. Again and again. I've tried to save her, Jake. But every time I stop her, the outcome gets worse. If you stop her tomorrow, someone else will die in her place. Someone close to you. Your mother, your sister, I can't tell you who. I'm begging you, don't interfere. It's the only way to end this." Jake stared at his future self, torn between love and fear. The reflection began to fade, leaving behind one final plea. "This is your only warning, Jake. If you try to change fate, you'll regret it for the rest of your life." The next day, as 4:15 approached, Jake couldn't take it anymore. He couldn't stand the thought of losing Emma. He rushed to her side just as she was leaving the house, begging her to stay. She was confused, but Jake convinced her to cancel her plans, keeping her inside. Relieved, Jake felt like he had won, until his phone rang. His mother had been in an accident. She didn't survive. Jake dropped the phone, staring into the bathroom mirror. His reflection stared back, older, scarred, and empty. "I warned you," it whispered, before fading into the shadows forever. "If you're still here, watching in the dark, remember sometimes fate is unavoidable. And if a time traveler ever knocks on your door or appears in your mirror, will you heed their warning?